the city has many things that we look at in terms of infrastructure. One thing that we always look at when we're constructing new roadways is life cycle cost, how long we anticipate that infrastructure to be able to be sustainable and stay intact. Also too, we have several different programs that we do to try to maintain and help to prolong the life of that infrastructure. And so when it comes to roadways, the council, of course, a few years back decided that every other year they were going to be releasing a CIP bond for the roadway infrastructure. What we did was we had a company come through and actually do ground penetrating radar and assess every street in the entire city. And that was the Figaro study, which kind of helped to fuel the need and or the desire and the almost the ranking of all the streets that needed to be redone, repaired, resurfaced. And so what that score basically does is it does a pavement index, and it determines what the condition of that pavement is, how long it's anticipated to last, and whether or not it has to have a full reconstruction done to it, which means not just the top asphalt but the substructure, or whether it can be something we call like a mill and overlay, which is a maintenance where we grind off the top couple of inches and put a new asphalt surface. And so in that, what we then developed was our CIP plan, which is on a 5 to 10 year cycle. And we rated some of the more major infrastructure roadways that were in need of being reconstructed. To date, we have completed MLK. We are currently in the process of Bell Street. We're in design on College Hills. Southwest has had some stuff done. Southland has had some stuff done. And we're also looking at Sunset and several other roadways. And so what we're looking at phasing this in by doing is that as those bond funds are released, we take and target a larger project that is going to be a higher dollar value, and then what we then do is then fill in the smaller dollar value projects as we can fit those into the budget cycle. And what we're also doing is, rather than just looking at what's on the surface and what we see, is we also too assess what the infrastructure is under those roadways. And so if we have aging water lines or aging sewer lines, we are in that same project with the roadway taking care of both the surface infrastructure and the underground infrastructure. And this way we don't have a brand new road that gets put in and 6 months later we have a water line that blew up because of the infrastructure and the water line was aged. And so it takes a little bit longer of a process in that construction, but what you end up getting is you end up getting an underground infrastructure and a roadway infrastructure that has a much longer life cycle that we would have to get into and do work less on in the future. Some of the things that we look at is that most piping and configurations have roughly a 40 to 60 year life cycle. We have pipes that are in the ground here in San Angelo that have been there for 70, 80, 100 years. And so what we do is as we start seeing areas that have leaks, we do rate those, we do track those. We are looking at which lines need to be replaced, and then also too trying to phase that in conjunction with our roadway infrastructure, so that way we have a single project that can kind of tackle both at the same time. There is roughly 640 to 50 miles of pipe that we do have to maintain, as well as the thousands of miles of roadway that the city does. And we have a pretty aggressive schedule in trying to take care of the more major infrastructure, and are looking at a lot of different unique and methods for some of the minor collector of the neighborhoods and things like that going forward as well. What we usually just tell everybody is, as these projects are going, we know that sometimes it has a tendency to get worse before it gets better. And that is largely because of, as you're doing that underground infrastructure, you have to tear up the roadway surface, and rather than coming back in and putting a permanent patch and having that cost, oftentimes we allow the contractor to do a temporary patch until the point where they're going to be reconstructing that surface. And we understand that does make for a rough ride. We do just ask residents to slow down in those areas, be mindful of it. If we do monitor those, and if we start seeing those temporary patches get in pretty bad shape, we do have the contractors go back out and put another temporary patch on them. And but ultimately, oftentimes we hear a lot of people say that it does get worse before it gets better, and hopefully that will continue to get better though as we move down the road and complete these projects. So.